to JForrest English Training. I'm Jennifer, and today you're going to learn English through stories. We're going to review 4 different news articles, and through this review, you're going to learn a lot of advanced vocabulary, advanced grammar, and even correct pronunciation. Let's get started.
Let me read our headline. Record-breaking dinosaur footprint appears on the Yorkshire coast. All right, dinosaur footprint. This is the footprint here. Now, this, of course, is my hand. If I put my hand into sand, it will leave a print, or mud, or any type of different surface, sand, mud, clay. I can put my hand in, and if I remove my hand, it will leave a print on the ground, and that is what they're talking about. But of course, with your foot, not with your hands. I'm not going to show you my foot. That would be very awkward and weird. Okay, record-breaking dinosaur footprint. Record-breaking, let's talk about this because this is an adjective. Record-breaking means either very new and or a big change from other things of its type. So of course, they have found other dinosaur footprints in the past, but this one is a very big change because it is so large. They're showing you the size of it here. So that's why it's record-breaking. So you could say, this year, the amount of rain was record-breaking. So it was a big change from rain in the past. So the amount was either really large or really small. Now, sometimes you can describe a company change, for example, as not record-breaking. The new initiative is not record-breaking. So this is almost an insult because you're saying, well, it's not record-breaking. It's not really new. It's not really a big change. It's very similar to what's already been done in the past. It's not record-breaking. So notice here, we're using as an adjective and I'm using my verb to be record-breaking, or in the negative, to not be record-breaking. Let's continue on. So this is the dinosaur footprint, the record-breaking dinosaur footprint. A giant carnivorous dinosaur. What is a carnivorous dinosaur? Ooh, do you know? This is a good science word. Carnivorous is an adjective and it describes the eating habits of the dinosaur or other animals as well. Carnivore describes an animal that eats only meat. Omnivore describes an animal that eats meat and plants, a bit of both. And then herbivore is only plants. Now, keep in mind, this is a description for animals only. We don't use this terminology with people to describe our diets. So as an interesting point, did you know that some plants are carnivores? A plant is a carnivore that eats meat. Well, there's a plant called the Venus flytrap, and the name flytrap because it eats flies, which is an insect. So that's pretty cool. But a lot of large animals, including dinosaurs, were herbivores. They only ate plants. Can you think of a dinosaur that was a herbivore or one that was a carnivore? Think back to Jurassic Park. Now, this is for animals. Let's talk about people to describe your diet. Well, you may know the term vegetarian. This is to describe a person who doesn't eat meat. Okay? Now, there are a lot of different diets these days. A vegetarian does not eat meat, but there's also a vegan, and this is a person who doesn't eat, describes a person who doesn't eat any animal products. For example, milk, butter, eggs, and even honey, because honey is produced from bees and bees are animals. So vegans don't eat these products, but generally a vegetarian would consume milk because milk is not the actual animal. Now, when I say meat, this includes things like chicken, fish, although obviously fish is not meat, but we just say meat to mean these products as well. Chicken, fish, pork. So meat products, I guess you could say animals to be more specific. Who doesn't eat meat, chicken, fish, pork, animals? So as a vegetarian, vegan, we also have a pescatarian. Now, a pescatarian, this is a person who does not eat meat, but does eat fish. So a more inclusive diet. So you could say she is a vegetarian, for example. To be a vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian. Now, if you eat meat and everything, well, then you don't have to specify anything because that's just considered the normal diet, at least in North America. So remember, these terms are specific to animals, and these are the terms we use to describe people's dietary preferences. So let's continue on. A giant carnivorous dinosaur likely rested or crouched down in Yorkshire. To crouch down is when you lower your body. If this is my leg, I could put my leg down like this as well. So I crouch down. In Yorkshire, 166 million years ago. Woo, long time ago. Deeply pressing its feet into the ground, and that's how it created this footprint, right? The colossal creature. Colossal means really, really big. Colossal. So if you want to be dramatic, you could say, I have a colossal problem, which means really, really big problem. But in this case, we're talking about the creature. The colossal creature left behind a record-breaking footprint recently discovered along the United Kingdom's dinosaur coast. And this is the image of the dinosaur that they think left behind the colossal footprint. Pretty big, right? Thousands of dinosaur footprints and many fossils. Fossils are part of a plant or animal or just the shape that's been preserved in rock or earth for a very long time. So this footprint we would consider a fossil as well because it's the shape of the dinosaur's foot and it's preserved in rock. So that is a fossil, and they've been recovered over the years along the Yorkshire coast. But this discovery was made in April 2021 by local archaeologists. Listen to the pronunciation. Don't look at the word, just listen. Close your eyes, listen. Archaeologist. 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 An archaeologist, well, this is a profession. It's a job title, and it's someone who studies the buildings, graves, tools, or other objects of people who lived in the past. So when you go to a museum and you look at a bowl that was from 2,000 years ago, it was likely an archaeologist who found that bowl. Let's continue. Now, this is a quote from the archaeologist, what's her name? Marie Woods. And she found the footprint, the dinosaur footprint, the fossil. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I had to do a double take. A double take is when you look at something and then you look again really quickly because you want to confirm that what you just saw was accurate. So let's say you're walking down the street and you see Brad Pitt. You look at this guy and then you're going to look again. Was that just Brad Pitt? You do a double take, and it happens really quickly to do a double take, okay? To do a double take. But let's say you just got an assignment back and you see that you got 100%. So you look at it and then you might look again. You have to do a double take because you can't believe you got 100%. So you can use this in many different situations. It's just an expression to say that you want to confirm that what you saw is correct because it's very surprising or unlikely, like seeing a celebrity, Brad Pitt. So Marie Woods had to do a double take because it was so surprising seeing this giant, colossal footprint. She said in a statement, "I have seen a few smaller prints when out with friends, but nothing like this." Now notice her verb tense. What verb tense is this? This is the present perfect. And in this case, let me write this, present perfect. Because our timeline is an unfinished timeline. So let's say she has seen 10 fossils, but it's possible for her to see more fossils because she's alive. And tomorrow, if she goes for a walk on the coast, she might see 11 fossils or one more fossil, which makes 11 total fossils. And then the next year, she might see another fossil, and then her total is 12 fossils. So because this number can increase, it's considered an unfinished timeline, and we use the present perfect. So you might say, I've been to 3 different countries, but you can still go to other countries next year, in the next 10 years, 20 years, as long as you're alive. So that's an unfinished timeline, and that's why it's in the present perfect. Let's continue on. Woods reached out to paleontologist Dr. Dean Lomax. If there are any Friends fans watching, you may know that Ross Geller, one of the main characters from the TV show Friends, was obsessed with dinosaurs because he was a paleontologist. A paleontologist is someone who studies fossils as a way of getting information about the history of life on Earth. Pronunciation, listen, paleontologist. Archaeologist, paleontologist. Now, Woods reached out. This is a very common business phrasal verb. And when you reach out to someone, it simply means that you contact someone for a specific purpose. And that specific purpose is to discuss this fossil, this colossal fossil. That rhymes, colossal fossil. Okay. To reach out to. Now notice this preposition because you always reach out to someone. You do not reach out someone. That's grammatically incorrect. You reach out to someone. So make sure you get that too. Let's continue on. So Woods reached out to paleontologist Dr. Dean Lomax to get his thoughts on what she found at Bernardston Bay. So to get one's thoughts on is just another way of asking someone what they think about it, their opinion, to get one's thoughts on. So that's a nice alternative you can add to your vocabulary. The 3-toed footprint. So 3-toed, we are 5, fingers on my hands, toes on your feet, right? So I have a 5-fingered hand. But dinosaurs had a 3-toed foot. Okay, remember, I'm using my hand, but they're talking about their feet. So 3 toes. Fingers on your hands, toes on your feet. Is one of only 6 to be found in the area, and the first one was found in 1934. Concerned that the footprint might erode more if left along the coast. To erode, this comes from the word erosion. Erode is the verb. Erosion is the noun, erosion. Erosion is when something solid, like soil or stone, a rock, but it's gradually reduced or destroyed by the natural elements, by water, rain, or wind. So that footprint that we saw right now, it's a solid footprint. But over time, water is going to hit it and is going to gradually reduce, and that's from erosion, and eventually it will be gone. Of course, this will take many, many, many years. Now, did you know that the Grand Canyon was produced by erosion? It was produced by this giant rock being worn away by water. And eventually it was worn away so much that it produced the Grand Canyon. Okay, concerned that the footprint might erode, so be destroyed by the natural elements, might erode more, so it's already eroded some because it is very old, right? If left along the coast, the team arranged for it to be safely moved. Fossil collectors Mark, Aaron, and Shay Smith carefully collected the footprint and donated it to the Scarborough Museum and Galleries. Well, that's nice. Hudson and Lomax were able to study the footprint in detail once it was relocated. So notice they have re here in front of the verb locate. When something is relocated, it means it's moved from one location to another location. So that's relocated. Moved from one location to another location. And often it's done for security reasons, to protect something. So they might relocate the Mona Lisa painting from the museum to a protected area if they think there's a threat to it, and then return it to the original location once the threat is over, which enabled the researchers to learn more about the dinosaur who left the impression behind. In this case, the impression is just the footprint. The print is also the impression, the mark you see in the rock. Now, enable, this is just a formal way of saying allow. It was relocated, which enabled the researchers, which allowed the researchers to learn more about it. The duo means two. So in this case, the duo represents Hudson and Lomax. That's our duo because duo means two. Sometimes we see this on food menus. You might see a duo of dips. So you have one dip, maybe salsa, and the other dip, maybe guacamole. So those are your two dips. So you could say chips with a duo of dips, which means two dips. So you can see this on food items, but it commonly refers to people. A duo, that means two. Analyze the shape of the footprint, number of toes, and claw marks. So if I were to scratch into something, that would leave a mark. I don't have claws, I have nails, but on animals, generally they call them claws instead of nails. So if a dinosaur scraped into the rock or the tree, that would be the claw marks. As well as impressions. Remember, impressions are just marks left behind from the dinosaur's feet or hands made by the dinosaur's skin. Well, in this case, is impressions from the skin. Because if the dinosaur was lying down, it would leave marks on the ground from any part of the body the dinosaur was touching. Once work has been completed on the fossilized footprint, this is just the adjective form. A footprint that's fossilized just means it's preserved in the rock. It has become a fossil. It will go on public display. So to go on public display just means to be available publicly. Available publicly. It will go on public display. It will be available publicly, which means if you were in Scarborough Museum, wherever that is, you would be able to see this fossil. Wouldn't that be cool? You can go take a selfie with it. It will go on public display, among others, at the Scarborough Museum and Gallery's Rotunda Museum. So that's where you can see the fossil. So that's our article. A lot of advanced vocabulary, but very common vocabulary. And now I will read the article in full from start to finish so you can follow along and focus on my pronunciation. Record-breaking dinosaur footprint appears on the Yorkshire coast. A giant carnivorous dinosaur likely rested or crouched down in Yorkshire 166 million years ago, deeply pressing its feet into the ground. The colossal creature left behind a record-breaking footprint recently discovered along the United Kingdom's dinosaur coast. Thousands of dinosaur footprints and many fossils have been recovered over the years along the Yorkshire coast. But this discovery was made in April 2021 by local archaeologist Marie Woods as she walked along the coast. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I had to do a double take, Woods said in a statement. I have seen a few smaller prints when out with friends, but nothing like this. Woods reached out to paleontologist Dr. Dean Lomax to get his thoughts on what she found at Burniston Bay. The three-toed footprint is one of only 6 to be found in the area, and the first one was found in 1934. Concerned that the footprint might erode more if left along the coast, the team arranged for it to be safely moved. Fossil collectors Mark, Aaron, and Shay Smith carefully collected the footprint and donated it to the Scarborough Museum and Galleries. Hudson and Lomax were able to study the footprint in detail once it was relocated, which enabled the researchers to learn more about the dinosaur who left the impression behind. The duo analyzed the shape of the footprint, number of toes, and claw marks, as well as impressions made by the dinosaur's skin. Once work has been completed on the fossilized footprint, it will go on public display, among others, at the Scarborough Museum and Gallery's Rotunda Museum.
Amazing job with that article. Now feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play and we'll continue on with the next article.
Should cats be allowed on airplanes? So this is an opinion-based article, and the topic is cats on airplanes. Now, let's say you are going to provide an answer to this question, because it's a question, right? So if you want to sound more advanced, more professional, you can add an opinion word. You can say, in my opinion, and then you can state your opinion. Cats should or shouldn't be allowed on airplanes. So you can say, in my opinion, that's a very common one. You can also say, from my perspective. Now notice, it's from my perspective. In my opinion, from my perspective. These are the two most common opinion words that you can use. You could also say simply, I think. I think that cats should or shouldn't be allowed on airplanes. Now notice here, I included that. A lot of students get confused about when you need to use that and when you don't. Generally, in written English, we include that. I think that cats should. Generally, you can absolutely just say, I think cats should. Now, in spoken English, we generally do not include it just to make it shorter. And we say, I think cats should. So if you're writing, you can include it. It's more common. But if you're speaking, it's more common to omit it, exclude it. So here are some opinion words you can start adding to your speech. You can start right now and share your opinion about cats on airplanes in the comment of this video and use "in my opinion" or "from my perspective." They will both help you sound very advanced. All right, let's continue on. At the Bogota airport, as passengers were placing their carry-ons, laptops, and purses in bins, inching their way on the conveyor belt for inspection. Okay, let's stop here. Carry-ons. This is absolutely must know for travel vocabulary. Most commonly planes, but you can also use this on trains, buses, most likely boats as well. Now, a carry-on is simply a bag that you carry on to the airport, onto the airplane. Excuse me, not airport, airplane. Now, a suitcase is generally larger and you would check that. So when you get to the airport, you check your suitcase and it goes under the plane. But then you take your smaller suitcases, your smaller bags onto the airplane with you. You carry it onto the plane. So here on Google Images, you can see the carry-on bags. Now, this right here that this man is opening, this is called the overhead bin, the overhead bin. And your bag must fit in the overhead bin or go under your seat in order for it to be a carry-on bag. So let me just write that here. So overhead bin, so your carry-on bag or suitcase must fit in the overhead bin or under your seat. And then we have larger suitcases. Larger suitcases are called checked bags or luggage, and they go under the plane. So they do not go on the plane with you, they go under the plane. All right. Now let's move on and look at this. Inching their way. So an inch is a very small amount. So if I say I'm inching my way, it means I'm making slow progress. So if you said, I'm inching my way towards the exit, it means the line is going very slowly. So you could use that when you're at a grocery store or when you're going through security at the airport. So you might say, I inched my way through security and it took me almost 1 hour. So if you use inch my way, the person understands you're making progress slowly. All right, one item stood out. This is a great phrasal verb, to stand out. And this means to be noticeable, to stand out, to be noticeable. So it's something that you notice more than other things. So let's say I have these 2 black pens. And maybe I'll take this one, this purple one, because it's darker, right? And then I can take this one. Well, if I get rid of this one, this is a better example. If I have these 3 pens, which one, in your opinion, from your perspective, which one stands out? Which one is more noticeable? Well, the yellow one stands out obviously, because it's a bright color. So this item in all the suitcases, this one item was more noticeable because there was a cat in the suitcase. That's why it stood out. One item stood out, was more noticeable. It was a cat, and its owner was putting it into a cabin-ready case. So a cabin is what I showed you in the picture. That's where all the passengers go when they're on a plane. They just call that the cabin. So that cat is going on the plane. Okay, let me just write out that example sentence with the yellow pen for you. The yellow pen stood out. So remember, this is a phrasal verb. You need your verb stand, which you conjugate. In this case, it's conjugated in the past simple. And then you need your preposition out. The yellow pen stood out. For most travelers, this would hardly be noticeable. Yet for me, alarm bells rang. Okay, let's take a look here. Hardly. This is an adverb. Hardly be noticeable. When you use hardly, it means a small amount. So for most people, they wouldn't notice the cat. It's a small amount that they would notice. So not very much, a small amount. There's another word that means the exact same thing, another adverb. You could also say hardly or barely. Hardly, barely. They mean the same thing in this specific context, a small amount. This would barely be noticeable. This would hardly be noticeable. And remember, instead of be noticeable, you can say stand out. This would hardly stand out. This would barely stand out. Yet for me, alarm bells rang. So just like your phone rings, right? That's the verb we use, to ring, when you get a phone call. Well, that's the verb we use with alarms. Roo, roo, roo. That's ring. The alarm rings, and rang is just in the past simple. Alarm bells rang. I am severely allergic to cats, vulnerable to allergic asthma, and a cat was going to be sharing my cabin during the 6-hour Air Canada flight. Now remember, cabin is just used to describe the interior of the plane. That's it. So the interior of the plane, they call it a cabin. I don't know why. Interior of the plane. So it's where you sit, where your bags are, where the pilot is, everything on the inside of the plane. All right, what else? Oh, severely. So severely, this is an adverb, and it's saying to a large degree. So remember, hardly was small, but then severely is to a large degree. So in certain contexts, you could think of them as opposites. So this is to a large degree. To a large degree. All right, let's move on here. Why are cats allowed? Yes, dogs are also permitted in the cabin, yet twice as many people are allergic to cats as to dogs, according to the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. Let's take a look at yet, because I noticed they also used it here, yet for me. So yet. Yet is one of those words in English that has many different meanings depending on the context. And that's why it's so useful to study from articles because you see the context that the word is being used. In this specific context, yet is being used as a conjunction. It's a conjunction. And it has the same meaning as but or however. So it's used to show a contrast. So here, let's look at our first example. Most travelers wouldn't notice a cat. I would notice a cat. Do you see the contrast? Most travelers would not. I would. So we have a yes and a no. There's a contrast. We use yet to help us transition from the one contrast point to the other contrast point. So you could equally say, but for me, however for me, yet for me, in this specific context. And it's the same thing here. So cats are allowed, dogs are allowed, but twice as many people are allergic. Yet, so we're setting up another contrast and we're using yet as a conjunction. Now, just as a reminder, all of these notes are available as a PDF download, so you can look in the description of this video to get this download. Let's continue on. Yet, twice as many people are allergic to cats as to dogs. Here, they chose to use as to dogs. Honestly, I would say than. So we have twice as many people are allergic to cats than dogs. That's what I would say, than dogs. And you're probably more familiar with that wording. So for example, more people buy dogs than cats. More people fly than travel by bus, for example. So just showing you that contrast, that comparison with then. All right, let's continue on. Dangers of exposure. So what is a cat allergic passenger to do? So this person is allergic to cats. They get a reaction, but someone is taking a cat on the plane and they might be quite close to each other. So they're asking for advice. What is that person to do? And this is the advice. Take medications that help prevent symptoms, advises Randolph. So notice here, advises. This is being used as our verb. And the noun form of advise, we can use advice, which is the noun. What advice do you have for me? Because this person is asking for advice. What advice do you have for me? And I can say, I advise you to take medication. Advise, advice. So notice the pronunciation difference. Advice, advise. Advice, advise. This is our noun and this is our verb. Spelling difference and pronunciation difference as well. This includes a non-drowsy antihistamine taken an hour before the flight and 2 puffs of a rescue inhaler 15 minutes before boarding. So drowsy. Drowsy is when you feel sleepy or tired. If you feel sleepy or tired. Sleepy, tired. But when you say non-drowsy, it makes it negative because a lot of medication makes you feel sleepy or tired. It makes you drowsy. So a lot of medication will say on their label, Do not drive after taking medication because it may make you drowsy, which means sleepy. But generally, drowsy is the vocabulary choice when we're talking specifically about medication. Now, if I had a long day at work, or if I didn't sleep very well, I wouldn't say I feel drowsy, because drowsy implies the result of some sort of medication, because we use it with medication. So if you're just talking about working hard or not sleeping well, you would use tired or sleepy. I feel tired. I feel sleepy. I am or I feel. Either one of those is fine. I am, I feel tired or sleepy. But if you're talking specifically about medication, then you can use drowsy. All right, so that's the advice, which is a noun. Let's continue on. A mask used to protect against COVID-19 could help prevent the dander from getting into your airways. Dander, that is something from the cat's fur. So little particles from the cat's fur is called dander. And that's generally why people are allergic to cats. It's the dander on their fur. Airways is, of course, just how you get air into your body is through your airways. So your nose is one of your airways, and your mouth, your throat, is another one of your airways. So how you get air into your body. Now, notice how they're using could as our modal verb, because could is used to show possibility or potential. Possibility or potential. So it's not saying that it will help you. Will is a more of an absolute. This will work. It sounds 100% certain. This could work. It's just a possibility. It's also possible that it won't work. So could is used to show possibility. So this medicine could make you drowsy. Could, there's a possibility, the potential, and that's a modal verb. And remember, we always have modal plus base verb. So you don't change your verb that comes next. It's always the base verb. And could doesn't change either. This medicine could make you drowsy. Let's continue on. Is anything being done? Is there any progress in at least making the public and the airline industry aware of the cat allergy problem? We have been trying to raise awareness of cat allergy in cabins since 1985, notes Tanya Winders, president of the Virginia-based Global Allergy Airways Patient Platform, an 82-member network of patient-based groups, including the Asthma and Allergy Network. Winders points to the Federal Aviation Administration's Air Carrier Access Act, which is supposed to protect people with disabilities, including severe allergies. But the only protection the website offers is advice. Choose an airline that does not allow cats in cabins. Call ahead and check with your doctor. All right, so here, this is the advice. We have our noun here, and you can see those 3 points. That's what she advises using our verb. That's what she advises you do. Now let's go back here. There were a lot of very long names. Those are just the names of these specific groups or the specific act. You can just ignore those pretty much. What can I show you here? We have raise awareness. Raise is the verb you would use. You can also use increase awareness. Increase awareness, but raise is a very common verb with the word awareness. So you can add that to your vocabulary. Now notice we have since 1985, and when I see the word since, I can look back and I already know that my sentence is going to be in the present perfect. Now, what verb tense do we have here? We have been trying. We've been trying. We've been trying. This is the present perfect continuous. Present perfect continuous. And it shows an action that started in the past and continues until now. So when did this action start? Well, it started in 1985. So that was the start point, 1985, and then it's continued all the way until now, and it will continue until some unknown time in the future. So not too much on this last page because it was mainly those long groups, those long organizations. So what I'll do now is I will read the article from start to finish so you can focus on my pronunciation and you can imitate my pronunciation as well. And remember, you can also look in the description of this video to get the link that summarizes all the notes I made. So now I'll read the article from start to finish. Should cats be allowed on airplanes? At the Bogota airport, as passengers were placing their carry-ons, laptops, and purses in bins, inching their way on the conveyor belt for inspection, one item stood out. It was a cat, and its owner was putting it into a cabin-ready case. For most travelers, this would hardly be noticeable. Yet for me, alarm bells rang. I am severely allergic to cats, vulnerable to allergic asthma, and a cat was going to be sharing my cabin during the 6-hour Air Canada flight. Why are cats allowed? Yes, dogs are also permitted in the cabin, yet twice as many people are allergic to cats as to dogs, according to the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. Dangers of exposure. So what is a cat allergic passenger to do? Take medications that help prevent symptoms, advises Randolph. This includes a non-drowsy antihistamine taken an hour before the flight and 2 puffs of a rescue inhaler 15 minutes before boarding. A mask used to protect against COVID-19 could help prevent the dander from getting into your airways. A HEPA air filter, which most airplanes say they use, could also help, but not if a cat is sitting next to you. Is anything being done? Is there any progress in at least making the public and the airline industry aware of the cat allergy problem? We have been trying to raise awareness of cat allergy in cabins since 1985, notes Tonya Winders, president of the Virginia-based Global Allergy Airways Patient Platform, an 82-member network of patient-based groups, including the Asthma and Allergy Network. Winders points to the Federal Aviation Administration's Air Carrier Access Act, which is supposed to protect people with disabilities, including severe allergies. But the only protection the website offers is advice. Choose an airline that does not allow cats in cabins. Call ahead and check with your doctor.
Amazing job with that article. Now feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play and we'll continue on with the next article.
First, I'll read the headline, Fred the Pig Caught After Mischief Rampage. So in this picture, it looks like this is Fred the Pig. And he was caught after mischief rampage. First, I want you to notice my pronunciation here. Mischief, mischief. So here, you don't hear this E sound because we do have a word that you may be familiar with, which is chief. Same spelling at this end, but this here is a long E sound, chief, but here you don't hear that long E, and it's just like if you were saying if, mischief. So notice that pronunciation. And what exactly is mischief? Mischief essentially means bad behavior. We use this a lot with children, of course. The children got into mischief while I was working. Now, let's talk about rampage. What is this? This is when you go through an area and you do that making a lot of noise and causing damage. So this pig went through an area, and as he was going around, he was either making noise or causing damage or doing both of those at the same time. That would describe a rampage, a mischief rampage. Now notice the sentence structure. Fred the pig caught after mischief rampage. Now, what do you notice about this part of the sentence? Is this an active sentence or a passive sentence? It might be difficult for you to identify this because in headlines of newspaper articles or short stories, they often omit certain words that are only there grammatically. So in this case, to identify the passive, you would normally see the verb to be because that's the correct grammatical structure. Now, correct grammar would be Fred the pig was caught after mischief rampage. But native speakers understand the sentence structure without the auxiliary verb, and headlines and short story titles always try to be as short as possible, and they do that by omitting these words that are there for grammar but not essential to understand the meaning. But the sentence structure, if you were writing this in any other context, you would need was caught, the past simple of the verb to be. Now that's our passive sentence. If you wanted to turn this into an active sentence, what could you say? Think about that. Fred the pig was caught. Well, we don't know who caught Fred the pig, but we could just say people, because I don't know who the subject is. People, or maybe officials, caught Fred the pig. Now this is our active sentence because the subject is doing the action, where in this case, Fred the pig is receiving the action. So this is our active sentence and this is our passive sentence. I wrote that there for you, and don't worry about writing all these notes down because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF, so you can look in the description for the link. Now let's continue and learn about Fred's mischief rampage. After numerous complaints, numerous is another way of saying many. After numerous complaints, after many complaints. And a complaint is when you say something negative. So if you went to a restaurant and you didn't like the food, and then you told the server, the waiter, this isn't very good, you are making a complaint. making a complaint. So that's the verb that goes with the noun complaint. I made a complaint about the food. Now, complain is the verb form, and this, a complaint, that's a noun. As a noun, notice it has an article. In our sentence here, after numerous complaints, there's no article because you don't use an article when it's a plural noun. But if you were to use the verb form, I complained about the food. So when you dislike something or you have a negative experience and you make that known to someone, you are making a complaint or you are complaining, the noun form or the verb form. After numerous complaints of mischief, we know what this means, and the pronunciation. Remember, mischief is simply bad behavior. Mischief. In the city of Aurora, a 400-pound. LB, this is the short form to identify pound. A 400-pound culprit. Well, what or who is a culprit? Well, Fred the pig is the culprit. And a culprit is someone, or in this case, something, a pig, who has done something wrong. A 400-pound culprit, Fred the pig, has finally been caught loitering outside a shopping center. Now, in this case, it is still the passive voice because the culprit, who is Fred the pig, is receiving the action. And the story isn't focusing on who caught Fred the pig, which is why we don't even know who caught Fred the pig. And that's why I had to just write people or officials, because that's not the purpose of the story. The purpose of the story is learning about how Fred the pig was caught. A 400-pound culprit has finally been caught loitering outside a shopping center. Let's talk about this verb to loiter. Loiter is the verb. Notice that pronunciation. Loiter, loiter. Now, when you loiter, you stay in a public place. This could be a mall, a restaurant, a school, without an obvious reason to be there. Well, what's the obvious reason to be at a mall? To purchase something. But oftentimes, younger people and maybe older people as well will go to the mall as a form of an activity, but they have no intention of buying something. They don't even have any money, but they're in the mall and they're just staying there. So they're taking up space, maybe they're making noise, disturbing people, and they're not actually customers because they are not buying anything. So in that case, those people are loitering. And a lot of public places like malls, schools will have a sign that says no loitering, which is telling you, unless you're here to buy something, I don't want you here and you shouldn't be here, which makes sense because you shouldn't go to a location unless you plan to buy something, right? From the mall's perspective. Personally, I also go to the mall sometimes with friends without the intent of buying something. So in that case, I am loitering. But this pig, Fred the pig, has finally been caught loitering outside a shopping center. So this looks like perhaps it's the shopping center. And obviously he has no reason to be there. So he's loitering. Fred the pig was loitering. All right, let's continue. Officials say Fred, who dodged them for several days. Let's talk about the verb dodge. This is a great verb to have in your vocabulary. When you dodge, when you dodge something or someone, you avoid. You avoid that something. I'll add or someone because it's very common to dodge someone. And why do you avoid that something or someone? Usually because if you get that something or that someone, it will be unpleasant in some way. So Fred, the pig, dodged them. So in this case, it's officials, the officials who were trying to catch him. Fred the pig dodged officials, avoided officials. Why? Because if the officials caught him, he would be in danger potentially. Of course, that's what the pig would think. Now, this is a very common word that you can use in your speech. For example, I've been dodging my boss's phone calls. So this is the exact same thing as saying I've been avoiding my boss's phone calls. So my phone rings, I look at it, it's my boss, and I press silence or decline, or I just let it ring. That's how I dodge my boss's phone calls. Why would I do that? Because if I talk to my boss, something unpleasant is going to happen. Maybe I did a bad job with the report and I know my boss is mad about the report. So if I pick up that call, he's just going to say, Jennifer, why did you do that report like that? And it's going to be unpleasant for me. So obviously I want to avoid that. I want to dodge that. Officials say Fred, who dodged them for several days, is always hungry and loves his belly scratches. So this is scratch and then his belly. I don't know if you have any pets. Do you have any pets? So notice that's how you would ask that. Do you have any pets? I'll write this for you. Do you have any pets? A very common question to ask. And to answer, you can say, I have, and then whatever your pets are. I have 2 cats, a dog, a bird, and a 400-pound pig, for example. Or you can simply say, no, I don't. Or you might talk about a pet you had in the past. I had a dog, but now I don't have any pets. Technically, you don't even need to say this, because if you said, I had a dog, because this verb is in the past, I know now you don't, but I'm just showing you if you wanted to expand on your answer. So share your answer to this question in the comments below. Do you have any pets? And this is true for me. I have 2 cats. I have 2 cats. What about you? What about you? Share that in the comments below.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
It took about 8 people and 5 hours to capture him. Capture is another way of saying catch, capture, catch, and you can use capture specifically with animals. They now hope to find his forever home, So in this case, forever is being used as an adjective to describe the type of home. And you see this a lot now when animal shelters are trying to find homes for their animals. They might have these really adorable pictures of a cat or a puppy or a pig, apparently, and say, Fred is looking for his forever home, which means that they want someone to adopt Fred permanently. Notice how adopt is used with animals. You're probably familiar with the verb adopt for children. You can adopt a child if you're unable to have children of your own or simply because you want to. You can adopt a child, but you can also adopt a pet. And obviously, when you adopt a child, it's a permanent situation. So that's why they're using this verb as well, because they want you to know that when you take this dog home with you, that's a permanent situation. That dog now has his forever home. Let's continue. City officials first became aware of Fred on September 24th when they received a call about a pig that was tearing up a person's yard. All right, let's talk about the phrasal verb to tear up. In this context, tear up means cause damage to, because they're talking about a person's yard. A yard is the area in front of one's house or behind one's house where there's grass, trees, flowers. That's your yard. You can have your front yard or your backyard, or you can simply say yard. So yard, grass, flowers, trees, bushes. And then if he was tearing it up, maybe he was digging a hole, he was eating the flowers, so he was causing damage to that person's yard. Now, tear up can also be used with a piece of paper. Right now, I'm tearing up this piece of paper. I'm taking a whole piece of paper and it's going into smaller pieces. So that's to tear up in the sense of a piece of paper. Now look at this sentence and notice my pronunciation. First, notice it's the exact same spelling as we just saw here for tear up a person's yard or tear up a piece of paper. But listen to the pronunciation. I teared up. Ear. So I wrote it out phonetically for you. Ear. So that long E sound. I teared up when I watched the sad movie. I teared up. Oh, so when you tear up, you get tears in your eyes. I teared up when I watched the sad movie. I always tear up when I watch sad movies. You don't want to watch a sad movie with me because I always tear up. Okay, so notice that. Exact same phrasal verb, but different pronunciation and different meanings. But the context will make it obvious. It's not possible that tears were produced in this person's yard. So it doesn't make sense that this would be tear up. So it's always the context that will make it obvious. So a pig that was tearing up, causing damage to a person's yard, the area in front of their house or behind their house with grass, trees, flowers, bushes, shrubs, a fence. But when animal officers arrived on the scene, they were not able to find him. More calls came in the next day. Notice you need the for next day, the next day. Sometimes I see students forget the and they just say next day. More calls came in the next day, this time about a pig in traffic. So traffic, of course, with all the cars on the road in traffic. Then another call about a pig that was ruining someone's landscaping. Landscaping is what you do to a yard to make it beautiful. So landscaping is when you add flowers, a garden, trees in specific areas, some decorative rocks, and other decor to make your yard beautiful. That is called landscaping. Now this pig, Fred the pig, Fred the pig, he was ruining, to ruin. Ruin is also when you cause damage to, but if you describe something as ruined, it means that the damage was permanent and you can't save it. So it's no longer useful. So permanent damage to something. So tear up to me sounds less severe. The amount of damage is about here, but ruin, the amount of damage is here. So to cause permanent damage to something, I'll write that for you. Let's continue. He was then spotted again. When you spot something or someone, it means you identify them. You identify them by seeing that person or that something visibly. So let's say you're at a conference and there are many, many people, but then all of a sudden you spot your colleague. Oh, I spotted Joan, my colleague Joan. I spotted Joan. So you were able to identify Joan in this large area of many other people. Here's another example with spot. Can you spot the mistake in this report? So again, can you identify the mistake? Can you see it? Can you notice it? But the important part is, and I wrote it here for you, it's because you're trying to. So I was trying to identify Joan in the crowd. I was trying to spot Joan. And you're reading a report carefully because you're trying to identify, to spot the mistake. So you're trying to do this. It's not just things you see because they're around you. You have to be trying to identify it, to use spot. He was then spotted again 3 days later on September 27th. So this makes sense because they're trying to see, notice, identify Fred the pig in the early morning hours. This time, Fred was in a position where he could be captured. Captured, again, remember, we can use caught, which this article has used quite a lot as well. Where he could be captured, caught, Miss Allen said. Still, it was no easy task. Notice the sentence structure here, because to make this negative, generally we don't just add no before something in English. Generally, you need an auxiliary verb. Still, it wasn't an easy task. This is the standard way to make something negative. Was not an easy task. And then the contraction of was not, which native speakers very commonly use, is wasn't. It wasn't an easy task. This, to say it was no easy task, this is an alternative structure that we use mainly to emphasize the negative. So I want to make it sound stronger. If I just say, oh, it wasn't an easy task, it was no easy task. It's more forceful to emphasize that no. It wasn't an easy task. It was no easy task. So you could say, maybe, learning English was no easy task until I found Jennifer's videos. Learning English was no easy task until I found Jennifer's videos. And now hopefully it is an easy task. Was no easy task. Was not an easy thing to do. So feel free to put this in the comments if you agree that now it's easier because you have my lessons to help you. And by putting this in the comments, you're practicing this alternative sentence structure. So put that in the comments. Learning English was no easy task until I found Jennifer's videos. All right, let's continue. He just wasn't ready to give up his holiday of running around the city and eating what he wanted to eat, she said. So, of course, the he is Fred the pig. And this is talking about the fact how he didn't want to be captured, caught, and it was no easy task. Well, and remember before, the pig, Fred the pig, was dodging them, which made it no easy task to capture him. Dodge is avoid. Now, why? Because he wasn't ready to give up his holiday. This is a useful phrasal verb to give something up. In this case, the something is his holiday. And when you give something up, you simply stop doing it. You stop doing the something, or you stop using the something. So a lot of people use this when they quit smoking. Oh, I need to give up smoking. I need to stop smoking. Stop doing the activity or using the activity. So in this case, stop his holiday. He wasn't ready to give up his holiday of running around the city and eating what he wanted to eat, she said. Of course he wasn't ready to give it up. After he was captured, staff affectionately gave him the name Fred. So when you do something affectionately, you do it with love, friendliness, admiration. And affectionately, this is an adverb, and it modifies the verb gave him the name. Because at the beginning, the story sounded like, oh, this pig is causing damage. This pig is ruining yards. This pig is loitering. So these negative things about the pig. But the staff feel affection towards the pig. So they affectionately gave him the name Fred to show that they're not mad at the pig. They feel friendliness or love towards the pig. So the staff affectionately gave him the name Fred. And he has been staying at the Aurora Animal Shelter ever since. So because this is in the present perfect continuous verb tense, I know the pig is still there now. Fred the pig is still at the Aurora Animal Shelter now. Miss Allen said he is an unusual addition to the animal shelter. This is an area where they care for abandoned pets or pets without homes. They call that a shelter. To the shelter, which more commonly houses cats and dogs. Of course, they don't get many pigs at animal shelters in cities, of course. Staff are not sure how he ended up on the streets of Aurora. When you end up, to use the phrasal verb, it talks about your final state or your final decision. So he's on the streets of Aurora, but they have no idea how that became his final location. How did he get there? How did he end up there? So you can use that. This is a very common phrasal verb. For example, I might say, I ended up staying home last night. This implies that my final decision or action was to stay home. But because I used ended up, it implies that I was considering other options, but I ended up staying home. So this was out of all the options I was considering, this is my final option. I ended up staying home last night. I ended up adopting a pig named Fred, which I don't think I'll end up doing, but I guess it's a possibility because I do love animals, but I don't think I can take Fred home for his forever home. Staff are not sure how he ended up on the streets of Aurora, how that became his final position. They have speculated that he may have been a backyard pet. Remember, I explained backyard already. A backyard pet that grew to be a much bigger size than expected. You're probably wondering about the verb speculate. It has the same meaning as the verb guess. When you guess an answer, for example, it means you're not 100% certain what the correct answer is, but you're just going to guess. So when you speculate, you don't know 100% what the answer is, but you're guessing. You're using the information that you have to provide an explanation, but you're not 100% certain. So they're guessing that he was a backyard pet that grew to be much bigger than expected, but they're not 100% sure if this is correct. They probably got him as a little piglet. So a baby pig is called a piglet. Baby pig, just like a baby cat is a kitten, a baby dog is a puppy. So this is a baby pig is a piglet, a little piglet, and he just continued to grow, Miss Allen said. Nobody has claimed Fred. So this means nobody has said, Fred is my pig. If someone said, Fred is my pig, then that person claimed Fred. But unfortunately, nobody has said that. And he seems to like his new home for now, but staff are hoping to find a farm for him where he can play and be at ease. At ease, you need the preposition at. This would be another way of saying be relaxed. If you're at ease, it means you're relaxed. There's no tension. And they're looking for a farm that can be, remember the expression we learned as well, that can be his forever home. His forever home. I don't know about you, but I love animal stories. I love animals. I always tear up when I hear about animals. So let's all say in the comments, good luck, Fred. Good luck, Fred. And hopefully Fred will find his forever home. So put good luck, Fred in the comments. And that was the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish. And this time you can focus on my pronunciation. So let's do that now. Fred the pig caught after mischief rampage. After numerous complaints of mischief in the city of Aurora, a 400-pound culprit has finally been caught loitering outside a shopping center. Officials say Fred, who dodged them for several days, is always hungry and loves his belly scratches. It took about 8 people and 5 hours to capture him. They now hope to find his forever home. City officials first became aware of Fred on September 24th when they received a call about a pig that was tearing up a person's yard. But when animal officers arrived on the scene, they were not able to find him. More calls came in the next day, this time about a pig in traffic. Then another call about a pig that was ruining someone's landscaping. He was then spotted again 3 days later on September 27th in the early morning hours. This time, Fred was in a position where he could be captured, Miss Allen said. Still, it was no easy task. He just wasn't ready to give up his holiday of running around the city and eating what he wanted to eat, she said. After he was captured, staff affectionately gave him the name Fred, and he has been staying at the Aurora Animal Shelter ever since. Miss Allen said he is an unusual addition to the shelter, which more commonly houses cats and dogs. Staff are not sure how he ended up on the streets of Aurora. They have speculated that he may have been a backyard pet that grew to be a much bigger size than expected. They probably got him as a little piglet, and he just continued to grow, Miss Allen said. Nobody has claimed Fred yet, and he seems to like his new home for now, but staff are hoping to find a farm for him where he can play and be at ease.
Amazing job with that article. Now feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play and we'll continue on with the next article.
Pet perks tempt staff back into the workplace. There's already some great vocabulary in this headline right here. For example, the word perk. Do you know what a perk is? A perk, this is a noun and it's an advantage or something extra. This can be money or goods and you're given because of your job. So of course you get your salary, but perks are additional. For example, I could say, if I want to recruit you to work for my company, I could say, our company offers amazing perks. Now, what are those perks? Free lunches. So you get your salary, your paycheck, but you also get free lunches. So that will save you money. So it's like you're getting paid more. Free lunches, free gym memberships, and free language classes. Those are some amazing perks, right? What about you? Do you get any perks from your company? If you do, share some examples in the chat below. Okay, so pet perks. So these are perks related to pets. Pet perks tempt staff back into the office. So let's take a look at this. Tempt. This is a verb, tempt. And this means to make someone want to have or do something. So in our specific topic, they're talking about wanting the staff, the employees, to come back to the office. So to not work at home and to work physically in the office. So how are they going to tempt you? How are they going to make you want to? It's another way of saying convince. Tempt you, convince you, make you want to. Well, they can offer you some perks, and in this case, some pet perks. Do you have any pets? Do you think pet perks would be a good way to tempt someone to come into the office? Let's continue on with our article. Mr. Griffin, who I assume is this man in the picture with these two adorable dogs. Mr. Griffin, who is head of IT for marketing agency Rise at 7, turns up at its Sheffield headquarters with his furry friends Jesse and Oscar. So furry friends, this is a cute and casual way of saying the word pet. So you could say, I have pets. I have 2 pets. I have 2 furry friends. And those are your pets, of course. So I'll write that here, pets. And the names of his dogs are Jesse and Oscar. I don't know which one is which. Okay, now let's take a look at this. He turns up at its Sheffield headquarters. So a headquarter is the main office of a company. For example, Google's headquarter is in California. I don't know if that is true or not. It's just an example. So this company's headquarters is in Sheffield. I don't know where that is. Now, he turns up at its Sheffield headquarters, the location of the office. Turns up, this is another way of saying arrive. It's a casual way, but a very common way. And the verb turn up is a phrasal verb. This is very commonly used. For example, what time did you turn up at the party last night? What time did you turn up? You can use this in more casual situations, but here they're using it in a more professional situation. But this is a more casual, informal article. This isn't a scholarly article or an academic article. So that's why they're using this casual phrasal verb, turn up. Let's continue on. Rise allowing dogs. Remember, his company is called Rise at 7, so they're just shortening it to Rise. Rise allowing dogs. The company allowing dogs in the office has meant that I've been able to take both my collies. Collies, this is a type of dog. So this is the breed. So we use that specific word, breed of dog, and that means the type of dog. And here the breed is collies, which is actually short for, what are they? I believe they're border collies. Border collies is the long name, and then people just commonly call them collies. So I just Googled it to make sure, and yes, the breed is border collie, but I spelled it wrong, so I need to correct that. And notice, border collie, dog breed, and then you can look at the different pictures for this breed or find out more information. So I just corrected the spelling here. Now, what's your favorite breed of dog? I really love Labs, which is short for Labrador Retriever, but everybody just calls them the short form, which is Labs. What's your favorite breed of dog? Feel free to share that in the comments. Okay, so here, this man, Mr. Griffin, he can take his two dogs, Jesse and Oscar, into the office so that his company allowing him to do that, that is a perk. So here I could say our company offers amazing perks, like you can bring your dog into the office. That is an example of a perk for this company. Let's continue on. They get to meet new people. In this case, the they is the dogs. They get to meet new people, have new experiences, and I get to spend more time in work with my colleagues. So there's some benefits for the dogs. They get to socialize, meet new people, and there's some benefits for him, Mr. Griffin, which is he gets to interact with his colleagues. He gets to work with his colleagues. So do you think bringing a pet into the office is a good idea? Is that a good perk? Would that tempt, using our vocabulary, would that tempt you to return to work if you were allowed to bring your furry friend, your pet? Okay, let's continue on. It's a complete win-win situation. Now, I already explained what the win-win is. Remember, he listed some benefits for the dogs. The dogs win. They get to socialize. He wins because he gets to work with his colleagues. And the company wins because the company has the employees at work, which is what the company wants. So it's a win-win. Everybody gets what they want. So this is a good expression to have, especially when both parties have an advantage. It's a win-win. It's a win-win situation. I like this. As far as I'm concerned, this is a great way to express an opinion. Let me share an opinion. As far as I'm concerned, and then you can list your opinion. Perks are a great way to tempt people to return to work, to return to in-person work, of course, in-person work, as far as I'm concerned. And then this is simply my opinion. Now, you can put our expression at the beginning, or you can add it at the end. So you can state your opinion. Perks are a great way to tempt people to return to in-person work, as far as I'm concerned. And then you can just add it. So you can add it at the beginning or at the end. So feel free to practice sharing your opinion related to perks or pet perks in the comments and use this expression. As far as, notice we have our verb to be. I'm concerned. So if you were going to talk about a group opinion, you could say as far as we're concerned, as far as he's concerned, Mr. Griffin, right? As far as I'm concerned. So don't forget your verb to be and to conjugate that. Let's continue on. Like millions of other people, Mr. Griffin got his dogs during the pandemic. Did you get any pets during the pandemic? Actually, I did. I got a cat during the pandemic, and then I got a second cat a year later. So now I have 2 cats. But bringing cats into the office is not a good perk because cats are not meant to go into the office. They wouldn't enjoy that at all. Okay, with most of us home working, to be honest, I don't see it written like this. When I saw this home working, I thought of doing homework. This is not an expression I commonly see. What I commonly see is working from home. Working from home. Now, this is an article from the BBC, so perhaps this expression, home working, is common in British English. I don't know if that is true or not, but in American English, honestly, I have never seen home working. I thought doing homework. For me, I would say with most of us working from home. So if you are learning American English, I would recommend using working from home. With most of us working from home at the time, as a result of lockdowns, there was a huge surge. Surge is an increase. And when you say surge, it generally represents a quick increase and a big increase, an increase quickly, and in the amount of the increase is quite large. So it would go from 10 to 80 in 2 hours. That would be a surge. We see this a lot with gas prices, right? Gas prices have increased quickly, but the amount of the increase is a lot. It didn't just increase by a couple cents, it increased by a couple dollars increase. So gas prices have surged. Gas prices have surged. There was a huge surge in pet ownership. So during the pandemic, many people bought pets. So the amount of people buying pets increased quickly, and the number was quite large as people wanted increased companionship. While having dogs in the workplace is likely to remain a rarity, this comes from the adverb of frequency, rarely, which means not a lot, not frequently. So they're saying that dogs in the workplace is not going to be common. It's going to be a rarity, something that doesn't happen a lot. This example is part of a wider trend. Companies introducing new incentives. An incentive could be a perk. An incentive is just something to try to get you to do something specific. And a perk is a type of incentive. So a perk is a type of incentive to try to make staff happier to come into the office more often. Job search engine Adzuna, I'm not familiar with this site, Adzuna, says that the number of adverts, this is another difference probably between British English and American English. We don't say adverts in American English. We just say ads. The number of ads, which is short for advertisement. So we just take ad from that, advertisement. The number of ads that highlight in-office perks has now more than doubled. So we could probably say has surged since before the start of the pandemic. So now people are searching for in-office perks as part of their job search criteria. They want perks. The increased incentives range from free exercise and language classes. That would be a great perk for you, right? If your company offered free English training, to complimentary food and subsidized childcare. Okay, so they range from to. When you use the word range from, you're going to have one end from this to this, and you're going to have a range, right? So you could say our prices range from $100, so that is the lowest price, to $500. That's the range of the prices, from to. Let me write that for you. Our prices range from $100 to $500. So here they use range from to. Now notice this word, complimentary food. Complimentary food. What does that mean? It means free. It's just another way of saying free. Free food. Subsidized. If your childcare is subsidized, it is not free because that would probably be very expensive. It is not free, but it is reduced. So the cost is reduced, which means likely the employer will pay some of the childcare, but you still have to pay the majority of the childcare. That would be subsidized. So in this case, it's reduced, but complimentary, that means free. Let's continue on. Employees aren't in a rush to return to the office, which means they're not doing it quickly. Because if you're in a rush, it means you're moving quickly. So rush, moving quickly. But notice, they are not in a rush to return to the office. So what about you? Are you in a rush to return to the office or no? After enjoying the improved work-life balance that came from remote working, of course, is another way of saying working from home. But remote is a broader category because home, I'm home right now. I'm working from home. But if I were in a hotel room in another city, but I was recording this lesson, I'm not technically working from home because I don't live in that hotel in a different city, but I am working remotely. So working from home is a category of remote work. Says Paul Lewis, Chief Marketing Officer at Adzuna. As a result, companies are desperate to find new and unique ways to lure employees back. Lure is another way of saying tempt, to tempt. The definitions are slightly different between tempt and lure, but they have the same overall meaning. To lure is to persuade someone to do something or go somewhere. To persuade someone is to try to convince someone, to try to get someone to do something or to go somewhere, usually by offering them something. Hey, if you come to the restaurant with me, I'll buy you lunch. I'm trying to lure you to the restaurant with me. I'm trying to tempt you to come to the restaurant with me. So they're very similar. Tempt to me is more common because honestly, when I hear lure, we generally use it in a more negative situation. For example, the man lured the child into his van, and then obviously something negative happened, right? So when I hear lure, there's usually a negative result as that person is persuaded to go somewhere or do something. Or the scammer lured me in and then stole all my money. So although the meanings are generally the same, I specifically hear tempt more in negative context. Use more when the result is negative. And in the news, often the result can be very negative, talking about murder or death, for example. But tempt is generally more neutral. I don't hear it specifically used in negative. And when I hear the word tempt, I don't think instantly of negative news stories. So because of that, I would probably just use the word tempt. At central London-based financial planning firm First Wealth, ooh, that was a mouthful. So at the company First Wealth, and this is just information about them. Where are they located? They're located in central London. That's where they're based. Based is another word for located. We're a Canadian-based company. We're a North American-based company. We're a central London-based company. And then, well, what type of company? A financial planning firm. Firm is just another word for company, commonly used with financial services, lawyers, very specific companies, but it's just another word for company. At central London-based financial planning firm First Wealth. That's a mouthful. At the company First Wealth, workers are being tempted back. Again, tempted back. So they are trying to convince them to do something. Attempt to convince someone to do something. Back via free sessions at a nearby gym. So this is the perk, the free sessions at a nearby gym. This is a perk, an example of a perk. Let me write this here, perk. This is a perk. I wrote it as a full sentence because this is a noun. So I want you to see that as the singular noun, you need the article. This is a perk. But of course, with plural nouns, we don't use the article. So I could say these are perks. Now, of course, this is just one perk, so we need more than one, but I'm just showing you grammatically we don't need that article here, but because this is singular, we need that article. So how about this as a perk? Would this tempt you to go back to the office if you got free sessions at a gym, so free gym membership? Beauty treatments are another incentive that companies are booking to get their staff excited about coming into the office. So this is another perk. This is a perk. And the perk is beauty treatments. That's an interesting one. I can't imagine what kind of beauty treatments you would get. I guess it's not in the office. It could be after work on your lunch break. You could go get a manicure or a pedicure or whatever you want. So beauty treatments are another. You could just say are another perk. They're using the word incentive. Remember, perk is a type of incentive. Beauty treatments are another perk that companies are booking to get their staff excited about coming into the office. So you could also say that companies are booking to tempt their staff into the office. Tempt their staff into the office. And that's the end of the article. So now what I'll do is I'll go to the top and I'll read the article from start to finish, and you can follow along with my pronunciation. Pet perks tempt staff back into the office. Mr. Griffin, who is head of IT for marketing agency Rise at 7, turns up at its Sheffield headquarters with his furry friends Jesse and Oscar. Rise, allowing dogs in the office, has meant that I've been able to take both my collies in, he says. They get to meet new people, have new experiences, and I get to spend more time in work with my colleagues. It's a complete win-win situation, as far as I'm concerned. Like millions of other people, Mr. Griffin got his dogs during the pandemic. With most of us home working at the time, as a result of lockdowns, there was a huge surge in pet ownership as people wanted increased companionship. While having dogs in the workplace is likely to remain a rarity, this example is part of a wider trend. Companies introducing new incentives to try to make staff happier to come into the office more often. Job search engine Adzuna says that the number of adverts that highlight in-office perks has now more than doubled since before the start of the pandemic. The increased incentives range from free exercise and language classes to complimentary food and subsidized healthcare. Employees aren't in a rush to return to the office after enjoying the improved work-life balance that came from remote working, says Paul Lewis, Chief Marketing Officer at Adzuna. As a result, companies are desperate to find new and unique ways to lure employees back to the office. At central London-based financial planning firm First Wealth, workers are being tempted back via free sessions at a nearby gym. Beauty treatments are another incentive that companies are booking to get their staff excited about coming into the office.
Now, I want you to keep improving your English with this lesson. And if you haven't already, make sure you go to my website and get this free speaking guide to help you speak English fluently and confidently. You can click the link right here. So get started with your next lesson right now.